Hey everybody, how are you doing? This is Bryan Kramer for another H2H chat. I'm so excited to be here today for one of my favorite topics. It's something that we as Pure Matter focus on a lot. It's a topic in my latest book, Shareology. And what's so exciting about this topic, not only is it something that I think companies are taking on and embracing, they have been embracing for quite some time, but it's continuing to evolve. And what's exciting about this is that we have somebody who wrote the book on influencer marketing called Influencer Marketing. That's Sam Fiorella. And Sam was also a great interview for my book. And so if you want to read more about Sam, you can obviously pick up his book, or you can skip through some pages in mine, and we talk about influencer marketing there. The other person that I'm really excited to have on here is Marshall Kirkpatrick. He is the CEO of Littlebird, an influencer platform, amongst other things. And so we are really happy to partner with Littlebird not only on the Shareology platform, the Shareology book marketing process, as well as just really drilling down on that part of the book and looking at influencer marketing as a whole. So that's going to be the topic for today. Why don't I just take just a quick second and have you both, actually we can take longer than a quick second, have you both introduce yourselves. Sam, why don't we start with you?
Well, thanks for the opportunity, Brian. I would rather, just for future reference, I'd rather have Maya leave her face and screen on and cover yours and hide her. So Maya, next time, make a note of that. Sam Fiorella, I am the co-author of Influence Marketing, as Brian so graciously announced earlier. Thank you. I wrote that book with Danny Brown. I'm also a partner at Sensei Marketing, which is a customer experience consulting agency here in Toronto and New York. And I'm the author, sorry, I am a professor of marketing on top of all of that in my spare time with Seneca College here in Toronto. And I do some work with the continuing studies at Rutgers University. So that's a little bit about me.
Fantastic. And Marshall, how about yourself?
Hi, Brian. Thanks so much for having me on the show. My name is Marshall Kirkpatrick. I'm CEO of Littlebird, and Littlebird is a startup based out of Portland, Oregon. We do data science and data mining to answer two questions, primarily for enterprise marketing organizations. And those are, who should I talk to help spread the word about my message, and who should I listen to learn things early, capture some market intelligence, and get a competitive advantage by building great relationships to learn things from. So, yep, that's what I've been doing for the last couple of years. Prior to that, I'm a longtime professional blogger. I was the first writer hired over at TechCrunch, and then I was the co-editor of another site called Be Right Web for many years, and I love the internet. So I'm excited to be building a startup now that helps more and more people find valuable sources of information and great relationships to build on the internet.
That's great. Well, welcome you two, and I thank you both for being here. I know, Sam, you actually took some time out here on vacation to be with us today. I appreciate that. But I actually didn't give Sam a choice, and so he had to be here. No, Maya cannot show her face, so you're going to have to deal with me for the next hour. So that said, I have the microphone. No, I'm kidding. So here, let's talk a little bit about and kick this off with, in true style, influencer marketing. What I'd love to start off with is why influencers are becoming more and more important to businesses. And so, Sam, why don't we have you start with that?
Well, there's 1,000 answers to that. I think the short version that I've come up with when speaking to my clients is that the internet has provided an incredible amount of resources to potential consumers to get information, and so we are turning more and more as a result of that to this plethora of data that is available out there, be it on your mobile device or on your computer or on a tablet. You know, your microwaves are talking to you now and giving you recipes connected to websites that you like. I've seen all kinds of incredible technology now where information is being pushed to you. And the reality is, as a result of that, we are making fewer and fewer decisions. Even spontaneous decisions are being interrupted now by this data that is available out there. And when you take a look at the majority of that data that we're reading and consuming, it happens to come from people within our network of friends, business colleagues, our social graphs. Even Google with their Google, My Web experiment, they're putting extra weight on comments that your friends make or blogs that people that you're connected to make, and it will raise those comments and those, I guess, recommendations, pro, negative, whatever, up on the list. And because of that, the idea that we are getting not just information, but opinion, again, positive or negative, from our peers and the people that we connect with in the social web, that's where the decision making ends up happening. I always tell this one story of a friend of mine who was buying a car. He had decided which car he was going to buy. He happened to be standing inside the dealership waiting for the salesperson to finish up with a customer that he was dealing with. And while he was waiting there, he was flipping through Facebook and noticed that a colleague of his was at the dealership down the road. And when they started chatting back and forth, because they each checked in, one checked in at the, at a Range Rover dealership, one checked in at a Nissan dealership, and they saw what they were going. They started chatting back and forth. Anyway, the guy at the Nissan dealership was convinced to move over to the Range Rover dealership while he was waiting, and ended up buying the Range Rover. And so he had already made up his mind what car he wanted. He did all of his online research. He made up his decision, but he was talked into going to the other dealership while he was waiting to place an order for a car. And he ended up buying a car, different dealership, different brand. And so the point there is that even the most well-researched decisions, right down to spontaneous decisions, are now being influenced by what our peers. And I think we're going to, at some point throughout this conversation, we should define what peers actually means, because that's shifting now, and what our peers are saying. And that's why it's so important for all businesses to start to understand what influence marketing can do for them.
Man, that's a great example. It's interesting how it's obviously there's online and offline. You can only catch so much information online, but some of the magic really does happen offline. As much as we try to capture as much as people share. We still have to teach people to share so we can capture that data. Otherwise, there's no way of knowing unless we had. I always say if I had a bat phone for every time somebody actually used some terms that are really important to me, so that I could actually pick up the phone and thank them for saying it in real life. That would be so cool. But then all of a sudden social media came along and we got kind of a bat phone, but there's still lots of conversations going on like that between people that starts to influence relationships and purchasing habits. And so I know we'll dig into that a little bit more in terms of how do we capture that and all that. But so Marshall, how about yourself? Why do you think influencers are becoming more and more important to businesses?
Well, Brian, I look at it similar to the way that Sam does, but I like to zoom out into some historical context. When I think about the history of the human experience, traditionally media and share of voice and the ability to spread ideas has been. That's right.
You said human, and every time human is said, that happened. I forgot to warn you guys. And by the way, the total number of humans said in one H2H chat is now at 11. So if you'd like to break that record by strategically saying human, you will receive that applause. Okay, sorry about that, Marshall. Back to you.
Right on. Well, I'm gonna try to get through a whole sentence too. But I saw that one coming, and I'm looking forward to it. Okay. Throughout the no, it's good. I knew it was coming. All right. So media and the ability to share ideas has been really centralized, and that was a major problem. It harmed society in terms of diversity of ideas and the ability to get the word out. And social media really blew that wide open. All of a sudden, the printing press is free. There are people, hundreds of millions or billions of people all over the world sharing their thoughts and spreading ideas. But as some people say, the solutions to every problem contain the seeds of the next problem. And so too now we suffer from information overload and too much chatter and noise and content and talk. And influencer marketing offers an opportunity to cut through that. First, from an outbound business perspective, 75% of, and I'm going to focus on, to complement Sam's example in the B2C space, that same trend is true in the B2B space. IDC said that 75% of B2B buyers now go to the social web to support their purchase decisions as well. People are going out to the social web and looking for experts and influencers and thought leaders in order to make decisions in both B2C and B2B around what they're going to buy. But on the flip side of the coin, that information overload can also be cut through by businesses finding those most connected, insightful people, the key thought leaders, to really focus on listening to and engaging with and helping create the future of a market with those people. So there's both outbound value, finding those beacons that all the customers are circling around, and there's in value in terms of discovering those really connected people who often find things first, who have won the respect of their peers and so are a great source of discernment. They're cutting through the noise, and you can hang out with them and capture a whole bunch of inbound business value from those influencers as well.
Yeah, there's certainly there's so many different points for, and when I say points, I mean little areas where you can capture what somebody says, or where an action takes place. Sam, I know that you're like heavily involved not just in this, but also in where data is connecting and where data gets lost. I mean, where all the moments of truth, right? The customer path we all talk about, and how do you collect that, and how do you the lifeline of a customer or even a potential customer, and then mapping that out. Is it a manual process, or can this be automated?
Well, first off, you're right. We do study this considerably in our practice. You know, the core of what we do as a business, touch points, all the interactions that customers have with the brand, from awareness and all the stages to purchase, and then from purchase through all the stages to get to and then of course that funnels, if done right, new customer acquisition and more people into the awareness section. And what we've discovered is that you can't automate the entire process. There's certain things that you can automate, and technology has really helped us do our job, especially from a measuring standpoint and data gathering standpoint. But I think that a lot of it has to do with understanding the customer life cycles, and there are too many situational factors, there are too many external factors that are happening to automate that process completely. And I think this is where the dynamic, at least today, I can't speak for what's going to happen with the neural web and in 5 years, 10 years from now. But right now, what we will generally do is cast a wide net when we're trying to identify an audience, to identify who's talking about a particular product. And then we'll go use technology one step further to try and understand the relationship between the people talking about that. And then potentially use technology to take that data and map it against existing customer personas that we already have in our database, to try and determine if we have some type of trend or pattern that we can detect. And then based on that, based on those relationships, based on who's talking to whom, we can then say, okay, we've got something here. And if we can build out some type of a pattern, we could automate generally first steps. So as an example, what does all of that mean? I think I've always found the easiest way to do this is to give you an example. We have one client where we did just that. This was in the early days. We were taking a look at what type of decision factors were happening when it came to automobiles and people with disabilities that were purchasing cars from a client. And so we did a really interesting study when we were looking at who we should follow online and who we should engage online. And what we discovered is that there were different types of conversations with different people when you drilled down to all the people talking about wheelchair accessible vehicles. There was one example where there was a father with children who was in a wheelchair, and he lived in a rural area. He had the same number of followers, followed the same people as another person we identified in this search that we did, and she was a wheelchair athlete. And she lived in the city, wasn't married, didn't have children, unlike the other guy. And the conversations that they were having while they both were talking about the same thing were completely different. The decision making that each of those two people made based on those personas was different and was influenced by different people. And so from a content perspective, which is I think what the question, the guts of that question is what we'll say is that content can't be necessarily, or the relationship can't be automated. The initial content might be. So people coming into the funnel, once we've developed those personas, we capture them through various software, and we can say, here's the first interaction to get them into a landing page, to get them to make a telephone call, to get them into the cycle. But from that point on in, we found that this is where an inside salesperson or whether a community manager we leverage quite extensively to take that next step and move that person into the sales funnel.
I love that. You can't automate relationships.
Bryan, Sam, I just got to pause for a moment and note how awesome it is that the world is changing so fast. It was 25 years ago this weekend that the Americans with Disabilities Act became law, and it was a requirement that people be helped to get into buildings in order to participate in public discourse. And now here we are 25 years later, and communication is blown so wide open that people with disabilities are just happen to come up as a reference point in the public conversations that they're having. So that's pretty awesome.
It is.
So Marshall, how about yourself? How do you? So let me ask you. How does information about influencers cross let's go specific on marketing team roles? How do you think that that the influencers and the information that's needed to actually build the influencer identification, the relationship, the all of the different points to the point where they become influential and become advocates for a brand or for a person, for a product, whatever, for service? How do you think that the information about influencers crosses those marketing roles?
Sure. So I'll tell you a little bit of personal history. When I started Little Bird in the earliest days, I assumed that that influencer discovery and influencer marketing was going to really be focused on go-to-market because companies were coming to me and they were saying, we're going to launch a product and we want to know who should we reach out to tell about the product before launch, and in hopes that they'll spread the word. And that made sense. But what we've found is that the data that gets surfaced as a result of the influencer discovery and engagement process spread beyond that use case and is now being used, especially in particularly innovative companies, for a variety of really different functions. And the first is in content marketing. Information from top thought leaders and influencers in a particular market is being used by content marketers to inspire the creation of original content and make sure that it's timely and pertinent to what kinds of trends are emerging that can be discovered by looking at those top influencers and seeing what they're talking about. And in as much as it's really important for marketers today to not just talk about themselves, but to be engaging in conversation and talking about other people's work and other people's influencer marketing has become a great source of a really high-quality pipeline of third-party content to curate and to engage with. That's super cool and has spread then out into the world of product marketing, where product marketers are some of the people that we find are most excited about influencer marketing because it's a way to focus your everyday public engagement out on the social web with those most influential thought leaders in your market and the conversations that they're having. And then the last two steps that we've seen is things leveling up even another step higher into informing really strategic planning from a marketing perspective and looking at influencers in aggregate to see how a particular target market is segmented around interests and demographics, how those are changing and moving in order to make a strategic decision about where to focus, perhaps who to either really zoom in on or who to avoid, what kinds of communities to make sure to represent. And then I'm excited to see hopefully that kind of everything from really transactional to daily to strategic take a leap out of the marketing organization and start informing things like product development, where when you're deciding what to make, you got to know what the smartest, most influential people in your market are thinking about, and learn from them as part of just informing yourself in deciding how your business should relate to the world, all the way down to product.
I'm going to inject a question here because I'm watching the stream and I think there's something that needs to be asked. We have to talk about it, and that's what makes an influencer an influencer, and I'm talking about buying versus paying, or buying versus them just becoming a brand advocate on their own. And I think this is a hot topic because I'm sure Sam's written about it. I'm sure you guys have at Little Bird talked about this all the time. The buying versus paying, like buying your brand advocate, that's just like buying Michael Jordan to wear your shoes. Are the shoes really that great, or did you just buy Michael Jordan to do it? Same thing for any influencer, really. If you buy them to blog, if you buy them to do something, are they really advocates for the brand, or versus going out there and naturally collecting influencers and helping them to give them first-time access, and they're just moved to help the brand. Sam, why don't we start with you, and then Marshall, I'll go to you next.
Yeah, and I think that's still the crux of the decision-making process for a brand who's trying to determine, do I get into influence marketing and how do I do that? And that is, am I trying to sway purchase decisions? Am I trying to interject myself into that purchase life cycle that moves somebody from awareness to purchase or from purchase to advocacy? Or am I trying to build a brand campaign as step one of a multi-step sales and marketing program? And so for me, influence marketing is really defined as the process by which we can influence the actions or behaviors of the consumer. And so, they were going to buy brand X, I'm going to get them to, buy brand Y. And that, for us, as what we call ourselves performance marketers, Danny and I spent a lot of time working on this. As a performance marketer, what you're trying to do is really be a salesman. We're tired of, marketing always being crapped on to say, well, you build all these great leads, and only 10% convert, or only 5% convert, or you give them to me, and then I got to do all the work, So you guys really aren't important in the equation. And we found that influence marketing and social media in general has changed all of that. And what our studies and what our experimentation showed is that influence marketing can and should be directed at swaying purchase decisions. So to sway purchase decisions, you need to have a better understanding of who that audience is. And to your point of purchasing influencers, the reality is most of the billboard type advertising that gets out there to get the name out there, to get a lot of people to recognize your logo or to recognize that a new product has just been introduced into the market, whatever the branding purposes, which is generally what happens when you're trying to purchase influence or purchase influencers. that will only go so far. That will take you to the first step. That'll get people to recognize your name, and that's important. We like to think of it one step further, and that is the entire campaign. And so for us, the earned influencer for us are the one-to-one relationships. So if I'm looking at a phone, I'm more influenced, quite frankly, in what my partner has to say or what my business colleagues have to say, because how are they using their phone to grow their business? If I'm looking for a phone for my kids and I got a family plan, my family and friends who also have kids are more likely to influence me on that purchase decision, as opposed to, if I'm the person without kids and I'm looking for a phone to use for work purposes or predominantly for work purposes. So I think you get the sense there. There are different types of people that will influence me on the purchase of a phone. Now, somebody like, you, Brian, you're a big wig in the industry. You start talking about the latest Samsung phone or the latest Apple phone, I'll listen. You know what I mean? You might capture my attention because I follow you and I hang on every word you say, frankly. But will you actually influence me to buy that? And I didn't even have to say human. A little bit of sucking up always goes well.
No, see, I got you to say. That's
all right, so you understand what I'm saying here. So for me, it's really about identifying what level you want to go to. And if you're just going to stop at the branding, that's okay. And I think you can maybe look at purchasing influence and getting people to blog for you, whether you pay for them or incentivize them in some other way. But I think that if you really want to have a successful influence marketing campaign, you do have to take it to the next level and look at that earned media, not just from popular social celebrities, but from those people who are having those conversations based on one-to-one personal relationships.
Mm. How about yourself, Marshall? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with a lot of what Sam is saying,
Not all of it.
Not all of it. No.
This is where it gets interesting.
Yeah. I think that I like the idea of a strong emphasis on earned, but the idea that your influencer marketing really needs to be focused on swaying the purchase decision, I worry in some cases is so focused on the near term that it misses out on all the value in the long term. There was an article I shared recently of a study that found that 70% of social media marketing's value occurs in long-term value building, long-term brand building, and activation or immediate drive to purchase is a relatively small percentage of the value that gets created. But I think it really depends too, on some level, on what your market is. We've certainly got some customers at Little Bird that find influencers and go out and bring them into a paid endorsement kind of campaign, and that can work well in a B2C market in particular. Some of our customers say the problem with that is that when you stop paying them, they stop talking about you. But especially in the B2B world and some emerging technologies and some of the most interesting places, that just doesn't work. I mean, we help customers find influencers and thought leaders in fields like artificial intelligence and space technology and 3D printing and stuff like that. And those the most trusted, influential people in those markets, aren't available for a pay-for-play kind of thing. It has just got to be an earned engagement. And the last thing I want to say along those lines is that I really think that advocacy, though it's widely recognized as one of the benefits of influencer marketing and social marketing, it's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, we're really focused on enterprise social here at Little Bird. So I'm paying attention to people like Dion Hinchcliffe and Michael Krigsman and Rachel Happ and Samir Patel, and those are thought leaders that, when they mention our name, when they tell people about us, that's cool. But man, when I think about all the value that they have brought to my business in terms of shining a light into the future of the market, that so outshines the short-term or one-time value, a mention or an act of advocacy. But you don't have to choose between the two. If you're really focused on building relationships and recognizing the whole amount of value that's available there, you get to become peers with top thought leaders in your market. You get the advocacy, but then you get a whole lot more as well in terms of market intelligence and ability to be a leader in the market. So yeah. That's what I would say about buy versus build, is that the building is really ultimately where you're going to get far and away the biggest ROI.
Marshall,
well, it's almost like go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to add something there. I think that you know what, there's no question that social media is still in its infancy, and at least in terms of how businesses are using it to leverage it for their growth and their profitability and their sales. I would not discount the importance of activations, not just for the short term, because certainly, just like most advertising, when it used to be nothing but billboard advertising, radio advertising, one to many, and then with the with the development of databases, we were able to do better one-to-one and targeting. And now that we're doing the same thing in social media, we're starting to get down to these one-to-one conversations and understanding the value of that. But the value goes beyond just, am I going to get that activation from those smaller earned media campaigns? It's what am I learning from those transactions, and then how do I apply that to the larger audience? Our experience is slightly different than what you've had, and I don't know if one is right or more right than the other, because I do think that all businesses today, based on the pressure that CIOs are putting on our clients anyway, to say, I need to see the ROI of these campaigns, not just the earned media that's coming from this and all the number of tweets and vanity metrics that we were talking about earlier on the pre-call. I think understanding those one-to-one relationships and what they do, from what customers are referring and friends are referring, people who are in the purchase cycle, that value and what you can learn and pattern from that, I think will have much stronger long-term implications than most people are giving them credit for. At least that's been the experience with our client base.
Yeah, I hear you, and that certainly does sound valuable. I question whether the idea that we're underselling as an industry the financial impact of advocacy on the buyer's journey or what have you. I mean, that seems like that's the low-hanging fruit and what people are asking for more than anything. But I go back to the words of Dion Hinchcliffe and a quote that he said a few months ago that I keep coming back to all the time, where he said that the networked organization of the future recognizes that the lion's share of value exists outside of its walls, and it works to capture that and bring it in. And he's a guy, for example, I read all his blog posts, and it's a mind and strategy and product expanding experience whenever these people who have blazed a trail and won the respect of their peers publish something that delivers a lot more financial value, in my experience, than a one-time or even periodic advocacy. But I mean, and maybe I'm overcompensating for the fact that that advocacy has been the sole focus of people's thinking about influencer marketing for so long, and there's just a huge world of opportunity that goes beyond that. So let's get both.
So let me just inject there real quick, because there is another topic here in influencer marketing that we could cover that actually plays right into what you guys are talking about. It's content marketing, and content marketing is certainly a very strong element to what is measured. We can measure content better than we can. I would venture to say we can measure content better than we can anything else with analytics and pipeline and so on and so forth. So my question there is, where does it play? Where does it play into an understanding of content in terms of creating a content strategy that could then result in some influencer marketing ROI? What strategy could you put in place that would make influencer marketing a lot stronger? Actually, Marshall, why don't we start with you on this one?
Well, I think that there are three planks to an influencer-informed content strategy, and I'll start at the end of the funnel. The end of the funnel is giving influential people a piece of content and asking them to reshare it. And a lot of people do that, and if you start out at that end of the funnel, depending on what market you're in, if it's paid, if the content is really great, if you've got an existing relationship with those influencers, that could work out real well for you. Going up the funnel a little bit more, it's increasingly well-known tactic is to ask influencers to co-create content. I think that there are ways to do that, kind of lightweight and heavyweight, really meaty ways to do that maximize credibility and insight and what have you. But then up at the very top of the content strategy funnel, you might say, is using influencers as an early warning signal, as canaries in the coal mine, to see what kinds of trends and new developments are bubbling up as early as possible, and then using that as fodder and inspiration to create your own pertinent content. Some of our customers do exactly that. They figure out who the influencers are, who the experts are, and then they watch to see what's trending amongst those people, and they never go out and explicitly engage with those influencers. They just use them as a way to watch and listen and get a competitive jump by systematically learning from the finest minds in their target market. So I think there's lots of different ways you can do it, and you put all three of those together, and it's super powerful.
Sam, how about yourself? Content marketing, super powerful. ROI. Where do you see the ROI in the marketing content strategy? Out of a strategy, I should say.
Yeah, I hate the term content marketing, although I use it time myself, simply because really content marketing is not that much. Because content marketing is something that we've always done as marketers. Just now that the volume of content has been amped up and everybody's a publisher and everybody is an author because of what we have available to us in terms of digital technologies, it's become a bigger thing. It's, more strategy and effort is put behind it. So I always have a difficult time with this question. If we're going to take a look at content marketing as the encouragement of your audience to develop content on your behalf, then I think we've got something to talk about, because we used to write white papers before. Why wasn't it called content marketing then, and all of a sudden it's a big thing now? So for me, vis-a-vis influence marketing, we'll look at how much content, how many recommendations are being generated towards the benefit of the brand, or to bring people into the conversation. And there's different levels that you can go through there. So I do think that it's important. I think it's important for a couple of reasons. Predominantly, it's a way to get people the information that they need. But it goes beyond the content. It's who's generating the content is what we look at. That's a specific focus for us. So what we measure is what content is being developed by our existing customers, so who we call our advocates, and what's being generated by those that we encourage to talk about us, so people outside of our company that are outside of our customer base. And then we take a look at what effect does each of that content have towards moving that person along the purchase cycle. So I think that's one area that we're exploring a lot more of, that I don't see happening a lot of. But if you can, and we've been successful about 50% of the time at being able to measure the impact of that, I think that's a very powerful thing.
So I'm going to jump straight to it, because now I think like every 10th tweet is asking, what about clout? Is clout a measurement tool that we should all use? Is it useful? Is it a benchmark?
This thing Lithium has, right?
Yes. It's this thing Lithium bought. Why don't we start, because I know where Sam's going to end up. So let's start with Marshall, because I've talked to him about that before. Marshall, why don't we start with you? Tools or platforms like Clout, are they useful?
So I have the Clout browser plugin turned on and see Clout scores for everyone that I interact with on Twitter and that I see on Twitter. I watch my own Clout score fairly consistently. I find that the more hard work I'm doing in the office, the lower the score goes. But what it does do a good job of is measuring the absolute popularity of an account that you've discovered. If you already know people, say they've shown up in your search results, or you've got them in a CRM, and you want to see how popular are the follower networks of these people, Clout will do the math and put it in a real simple universal number for you. And those guys were super ambitious and really blazed a trail that I think is really admirable. Unfortunately, they fell short in a couple of different ways. The first was that it was all about popularity in terms of raw numbers, and numbers are so easy to game out on the social web, and raw numbers without relevance and context just don't mean that much, again, especially in a B2B world. And then the whole Clout paradigm ended once people were ranked. It didn't do a good job of discovering brand new people at all, and it didn't do a good job of making good recommendations on what to do with people once you found them. If you had a pool of people, it would tell you who the cool kid in school was, and there's a place for that, I suppose. But then their solution typically was go give them free stuff, and you know that's one tactic. But again, I think it's a really limited view on you know, well, there's so many different things that can be said about that. It was real appropriate for the time in which it emerged, but I think that the future of influencer marketing is much bigger.
Sam, you're up.
I can't believe that we're still talking about Clout. I mean, really. I'm not trying to be flippant, but seriously, like, why is this even still a conversation today? As I wrote in my book, I give these guys credit for starting something. You know, much like what Marshall said, they understood that there was power there in online conversations, and that the collective opinion, or no, sorry, that one person could have a rolling effect on a larger audience that social media has given them, and good for them. I mean, I wish I was smart enough to think about it back then and laugh all the way to the bank like they're probably doing to me right now when I say, why are we still talking about Clout? But the reality is that fast forward to today, that model just doesn't work anymore. They've made a somewhat intelligent shift into content and trying to say, if you want to be influential in motorbikes, here's others who are, and here's some content that you should probably share. But it goes against everything that we've been taught to believe about social media and its authenticity. You know what I mean? I know that I've got people that I follow. When I see the little Clout thing that they're sharing, I immediately either say share nothing from this person or get rid of them out of my stream, because I know that they're sharing something in order to build up their score and get free crap. And that doesn't mean anything to me. And our clients that have experimented with it and ourselves just understand that that doesn't work. I want to talk. This is H to H, right? This is human to human. What is human? I asked for that one. What is that? What is that human to human connection that we are making now with technology? And so if you're going to take a broadcast media and say, I'm going to share stuff because I want to stroke my own ego and I want to become influential, I want to earn stuff, I want to be paid to blog, and I want these people to pay for me, that's good for you if that's what you want to do. But the reality is, for a business, those numbers mean nothing, and that content that is being shared might move the awareness needle a little bit to some people, but to the larger audience, the people who are out there in front of at the car dealership, you know what I mean, that are looking on their phones and talking to their friends. Those are the conversations that we should be looking at, and we should be shifting our focus away from who that high-numbered influencer is and start focusing on those conversations that will sway that purchase decision. And that's why I don't think that clout is even relevant influence marketing conversation anymore.
Wow. So you heard it here, folks. So Jeremy Murphy asked in a tweet, how can thought leaders be more effective influencers? Sam, why don't you go first on that?
I'm not sure that. Can you repeat the question first of all? I just want to make sure I got it right.
No, I can't.
Too bad.
I'm just kidding. How can thought leaders be more effective influencers?
All right. Well, every industry is going to have thought leaders, and they're important for any business to get a hold of and to leverage to the best of their ability. If you want to, I'm not even sure that making thought leaders more influential is really the goal. I think the purpose of a thought leader is to big thinking, is to get, you know, the people to start thinking in a different direction. You know, say, hey, there's something new here that you should also be paying attention. Let's get out of this current paradigm and let's go there. Then there's another step that happens after that, and I think that's the people who create opinions there. That's good. You need to now take a look at who influences once to the purchase. The people who increase brand awareness or get people thinking in a particular direction, in practical terms, are not necessarily the people who will influence the behavior of that business when it comes time to putting money on the table and getting rid of the legacy systems and adopting a new type of technology. So I think the question maybe should be is, how do we connect thought leaders with day-to-day influencers better? And I think if you can make that connection better, you'll see better results at the end. Marshall, what do you think?
Well, I want to watch out that we don't think of influencers as just like glorified street side sign wavers urging everyone to pull over into the mattress store, you know, for the big sale, but at scale. I think that once we start thinking about influence and thought leadership together, there are opportunities for people to be more effective in both. And the first tip that I would recommend, the first best practice that I think about, is to read a lot, to read other people's stuff and to engage with it, to be familiar with prior art. One of the things that always bugs me the most about Gary Vaynerchuk, who I adore and admire, is that he confesses that he never reads anything that anyone else publishes. He just publishes his own stuff all the time, and you know he's probably a one that can consistently produce such compelling, great stuff, despite acknowledging that doesn't pay attention to anyone else. So I think that reading and staying up to date on the cutting edge in the conversation that's going on in your market is one thing. And I tell you, my secret weapon personally is when I'm writing a blog post, or I should have done it here. Sometimes when I'm doing a media appearance, it's out of product. I won't pitch my own product, Little Bird. It's Google Custom Search Engine. It is if you go over to google.com/CSE, you can take a whole list of domains, like the best blogs or the best websites, and create a little custom search engine for yourself, and you can go and search for a keyword or a topic inside of that and pull up all kinds of old, like, archival blog posts and white papers and the very best content, a narrow sliver of people on the internet, and pull out some of that stuff to power your research. And it's super efficient, super targeted, and you end up looking really smart because everyone assumes, oh, you must have just read that obscure blog post 18 months ago and have instant recall on it. But really it was about using a system and using technology to accelerate and focus your own thought process, your research, so that you can communicate in a more compelling way. So I think that being informed about current and past best practices and the work of others is one of the best ways experts and influencers and thought leaders to be more effective.
So for sake of time, because we've got just about 8 minutes left, actually 7 minutes left, I'm gonna ask just a few more questions from people that are tweeting in some great questions here. Donna Peoples said, paid, owned, shared, or earned, what platform for delivering influence optimizes ROI the best? What's the most credible? I'm going to leave that open to both of you to just start, whoever wants to start first, just so you can let that kind of sink in for a sec, because I know it's a
paid, owned, and earned. What's more credible?
Yes, paid, owned, shared, or earned. What platform for delivering influence optimizes ROI? What is the most credible?
Oh, I think
all of them together. I don't think she's asking when you should be going for earned, or it just. And we're talking about a technology platform here, correct?
Yes.
Marshall?
Yeah, I think that it depends on the market. It depends on the campaign. I think that there's a place for paid. I think that great earned can drive great results, especially in working hand in hand with shared and earned. I think all of it goes together. I think credibility-wise, there's nothing like earned or shared, or earned in particular, for credibility. But a whole campaign is most likely going to, it's going to touch on some of all those and include some advertising support and include a road show, or it's marketing has always been and will always be a complex process, I think.
From my perspective, I would say that the only credibility, I guess, if we're talking about the same type of audience here, the only credibility that I've ever been able to exert or share or prove when working with influence marketing to the CFOs or to the CIOs or even to some of the CMOs that we work with, and that's the bottom line, is what value have you had on the customer lifetime value, or what impact have you had on the customer lifetime value? So if you want to look at credibility, I would take a look at the campaign, the combination of the campaign, the tactic, and the technology that you've gotten, regardless of whether it's earned or otherwise. Did we have an impact on customer lifetime value? And I think if you can do that, you can show the long-term effects of even your immediate campaigns. Because when you string those together, you can say, we've brought in these types of customers through this campaign, and their profile matches up to those who buy more, stay with us longer. So I wouldn't necessarily be looking at what platform from a technology perspective. I'd be taking a look at focus on the net effects, and am I measuring that value? Can I pinpoint that value? Whatever combination tools you choose to use.
So Sam, if you're tracking attribution for that last mile of the customer journey or what have you, are you taking credit for all of the branding and the earned media and everything upstream, or how do you really feel like influencer marketing is to the point now where you can credibly claim credit for a meaningful number of transactions as a direct result of what, a paid placement of owned, certainly not of earned?
Well, actually, yes. In various degrees with different campaigns, I can pinpoint to all three of those and how we've shown an influence on the purchase decision. Because, again, as I started off this conversation, we don't necessarily focus only on getting a paid placement in a particular blog from a so popular blogger. We'll take a look at who's engaging with our potential customer base, and what are those relationships, and generating that content that we can insert through those people in those small social graphs, people that we call micro-influencers. And we've been able to, on a number of occasions, attribute not only immediate sales, but effect on the long-term viability of this customer base that we're bringing in.
Cool.
Yeah, it's book is in the works. So if I could put a little plug in there, check back in about 9 or 10 months.
Nice. And that's about attribution in particular?
Specifically.
Okay, so we've had this is the last question here, and it's actually a question that spans a couple different people, David Hammond, Jack Kozakowski, and a few others, I think J.S. Gilbert, and they're all asking pretty much the same thing. And they want to know what analytics are being used in influencer marketing. What are some of the go-to analytics that are being reported to clients that are useful?
Brian, I can jump in and answer that real quickly.
Yeah.
I think Sam, I'm interested to hear Sam's response. So at Little Bird, we measure new relationships formed with thought leaders and influencers. We measure share of voice and mentions in the market by thought leaders, especially relative to competitors over a given period of time, typically a month. And then some of our customers will sync up their Little Bird data with Google Analytics or platform to track web traffic growth, and others still will use the content sourced from Little Bird in through a publishing platform and try to track some attribution from influencer-sourced content shared through a publishing platform and inject that into the broader analytics suite.
Sam?
Well, I can only talk from personal experience and what we report within my client base, our client base at our firm. And that is much like what Marshall said, relationships earned. So not just the number of people that have come into our community, our online community, or driven into our sales funnel, but the relationships with their social graph that has also come in, and identifying and tracking the number of those that we have. So that's number one. Identifying the people that we've brought in based on where they are in the purchase life cycle is another metric that we like to focus on. So when we're bringing somebody in through influence marketing tactics that we've run, where are they? And so that we can better target what that next content is going to be. The second thing we look at is how to match up to lifetime value profiling that we've already done with some of their customer bases. So as you can see, we typically tend to focus on metrics that will relate that engagement to the life cycle, and then we follow that life cycle long term with our clients to see where are they going, right? So that we can then better impact. So it's rare that we share short-term metrics. We'll do some of those vanity metrics if the customer is really asking for it, in terms of number of reach, earned media that you typically get out of a PR agency. But generally only when asked, we try and focus on the hard metrics.
So just to close it out, we just have one more minute. Marshall, is there anything that that you want to talk about on what's next for the influencer marketing platforms?
Sure. Well, this conversation has expanded my mind a little bit on that question. I can imagine. I think that the very next stage, services like that Sam and Sensei Marketing provides, working in conjunction with technology, are probably going to be a real important part of expanding the influencer marketing space. I also think that more and more work will be automated in terms of discovery of people and opportunities to connect with influencers. And then my hope is, as I have said over and over again here, that in the future, more and more of influencer marketing will go on beyond advocacy and beyond even the marketing department, and will really become a central way of doing business throughout the organization.
Sam, any last statement that you want to make about that same question?
I think where we're moving, in my opinion, is because the bigger our social graphs get, the more important one-to-one relationships are within those larger communities. I think that the measurement or the intersection between social relationship management tools and processes and influence marketing is where we're going to go. Is that we're going to be measuring those relationships long term. So I think it's that intersect between social relationship management or traditional CRMs and influence marketing. And I think that's where you're going to see, I'm hoping anyway, based on what I'm seeing in the early days here, a lot of growth.
Well, this has been great, and I have so many more questions for you guys, so maybe we'll have to do this again sometime. But right now, I just wanted to thank you both for being here on the chat today. If you have just a few minutes, there are people on Twitter that have been fantastic, and I wanted to thank the H2H chat community for taking part today, for driving a lot of great questions here. And so thank you all for joining us. Sam, Marshall, you guys are awesome. Love it, and can't wait to keep the conversation going. Obviously, this is just the beginning of what influencer marketing can do, and it's a much bigger conversation. So we'll have to keep the conversation going. I know I'm going to be in Oregon next week with Little Bird, and so if you are in or around Oregon, please come join us on Thursday. We'll put the link out on Twitter, but would love to see you guys. We're going to do a Shareology book signing and have some fun and some breakfast. So please join us. And other than that, I'd love to thank Little Bird for helping to partner and sponsor today. We learned a lot, and we're looking forward to talking with you guys soon. Thank you guys again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Marshall. It was great talking to you.
Well, likewise, Sam. Take care.
Bye.
All right. Bye, guys.